Hey guys, Coxie here. Just wanted to set the scene for the conversation that me and Barnsey had around all things fast bowling. I know that this is something that all fast bowlers, all cricketers in general, are going to take a lot out of. So sit back, enjoy the next hour or so, and get stuck in. We talk about managing fast bowler injuries and how to increase fast bowler performance, and go into what we like to see and how we like to develop fast bowlers, different sort of cues, different sort of strategies that we use to try and get fast bowlers better. That's the whole point of these conversations. If you either help fast bowlers get better or you are a fast bowler yourself trying to get better, this is a perfect conversation for you. So sit back, enjoy, and enjoy the pod.
From an S&C point of view, what the red flags are when you might, what do you observe when you start being curious about whether it's fitness levels or whether a bowler has reached the point where you might need to intervene and push harder? So one of mine, I was just saying, is a not a red flag, but a curious point for me is when the skills start breaking down. Skill as in ball speed, not able to bowl their stock ball as accurately and stuff. So that's quite a simple one from my point of view. But what are the kind of things that you look out for from your perspective?
I reckon it's probably the same. Number one, it's like when it comes to like spell length and fatigue across the day, like, number one most important thing is to get in the guys, bowling well, keeping their ball speed consistent. And like you can sort of tell when a fast bowler starts to lose their action a little bit and it starts to look a little bit sloppy in the run up as well. You can start to see they might be like overstriding and their running technique falls away. You can see they're just not like running on top of the ground, not covering the ground the right way. A lot of it is like stuff like subjective. A lot of stuff is stuff you can see, isn't it? Where you can just see somebody fatiguing and waning. And it doesn't mean that you should stop, in particular if you start getting fatigued, because sometimes the game requires you to still perform when you are fatigued. And I think that's a mental block for a lot of people. It's like as soon as I'm a bit sore or as soon as I'm a little bit fatigued, it means that, or even like sometimes when I don't feel good, it means that I can't perform.
Yeah.
And like, no, it doesn't mean you still can't perform. It's just you might need to adjust and find a different way to take wickets or restrict the batter.
Yeah.
When you are a little bit tired and fatigued. So, but like, let's say you are managing someone across like a whole day, and that obviously you probably don't want to cook them in the first spell. But typically, like with obviously you have guys that are a bit fitter, guys that are a bit more unfit, or you might have guys that are like ball speed dominant and fast switch guys like a Joff Archer or a Mark Wood or something like that, and they might have 3 or 4 overs in a spell, and then their goals to keep them fresh and attacking. And you might have somebody, like one of the medium pacers or like a Broad Nansen who can just bowl all day and bowl longer spells. So it's, I reckon a lot of it is like the same. We should be seeing it a lot, like fast bowls and S&C should be pretty linked with that, I reckon. Like, especially that's what's important to like know the sport, I reckon, as an S&C coach, because then you can sort of tell if this guy's ineffective, and the captain will just take him off anyway. But like I think, like in terms of like if you had data, like GPS, you could see like run up speeds going down, but you can also just see that as well. So I reckon those are probably the main things. But I think we're on the same page with that, to be honest. Like it all comes down to the performance.
Is there, in your experience, is there a direct connection between losing a lifting technique or Olympic technique and the point where skills start breaking down?
Yeah, I think so. Like when it comes to like overall like fatigue management, if you've like a stronger, more resilient muscle or a more resilient, repeatable, technique, then that allows you to be more efficient. And then that efficiency doesn't always mean that you are like stronger or have a bigger work capacity. It means that you can do the same amount of work for less cost on the body. So there's a great, when I first started getting the S&C and that, it was a little podcast, and it was like there was an Olympic runner, a girl, and she was running with, it might have been Arsenal, I think, the boys there, and they were just like jogging a few laps on a running session or something like that. And these my Arsenal players would be like way fitter, bigger lungs, stronger muscles, etc. But the Olympic runner, she was just cruising, just jogging, and the other boys were puffing. And it wasn't because she had bigger lungs or bigger muscles; it was just because she was more efficient and she had better technique. So she was, running at the same speed but having less cost on her body. And I think that the definition of like efficiency and a running economy and all that stuff is that how can you be as efficient as possible with that better technique? And bowling's the same. Like you'd see guys, I'm assuming that it looks like it's an effort to get the ball down, but then there's some guys that are really smooth and just can just get the ball down. It looks effortless, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. I mean, it's always fascinating to me, and this is why the connection between bowling coach and S&Cs, because it is really important. Because you guys can see very similar things in the gym, even before they put a ball in the hand, they start running in. So like I said before, as a skills coach, I'm always looking to push. Can we get them stronger, faster, more flexible, and things? When you talk about like tolerance, muscle tolerance, robustness, I guess, if it's clear that somebody needs to become stronger or more powerful, or certainly a change where they need to improve, what's your first what sort of process do you go through to find out what system would need to be kind of tweaked and worked on?
That's a really good reckon. I think like obviously the conversation with like a bowling coach like you is like the most important thing. It's because like it's the inverse for me. Be like, all right, we want to get them stronger and powerful. Like, what are some of the things in their action or in their bowling that they can't do? What are some of the technical things or the tactical things that they're not doing? That's the most important thing, because as a S&C coach in sport, it's not about making their squat heavier. It's about how can we use the environment of the gym to then help them take more wickets. So that's the most important thing. Once we've established what are some of the things that we need to get better at, let's say it might be like they're falling away in their action, they just don't have like the core strength or whatever it is, or they just don't have the power. Like it can be a variety of different things. Then like that's why it's really good to have some good testing in place.
Yeah.
And then you can actually see, like if you're like coming to me and saying they need to get more powerful, but then their vertical jumps at like 50 centimeters already, it's like, all right, maybe they have the power there, but they're not utilizing it properly. And then you might get someone like me who's going to jump like 30 centimeters and I need all the power I can get. So that's why the testing is really important. And like I think like things like vertical jump, drop jump testing, broad jump testing. If you have the force plates, you can test so much different stuff and get so much data on strength and power and things like that. So it's like understand the athlete through conversations, through testing, and then from there, once you sort of have all the information, then you put together the best protocol. Then that's where like individualization comes into their program. It's like, all right, are we going to focus more on strength? Are we going to focus more on power? And then like and there's also things like what vector, like are we going to do more vertical force stuff or more horizontal force stuff as well? So it's a lot of things that can go into it. But I think it all comes down to getting all the information, talking to the experts, what they want to see, and then getting the physical changes from the testing that you might be doing.
Yeah. I think that's the key. That's the message I give a lot of people. So the amount of times I've heard coaches say, right, you're in this position, you need to get your arm higher, or it could be anything. Let's say release point. It isn't just. Well, I wish it was as easy as just telling bowlers what they need to do, and they're able to do it. There needs to be that awareness. This is what science has given me and a whole host of like coaches. Okay, instead of piling in and saying, right, I think this bowler would be better by having a higher release point, because the seam position would be more vertical. They'd hit the string. They'd have a great chance then of learning the skill of like slanting the seam one way or the other for swing. And instead of piling in and saying, right, your release point needs to be higher, the question is, can the bowler actually get into that higher position in the first place? And then creating these relationships with someone like yourself as an S&C coach to work out, well, have you tested? Can they get into this position? And if they can, how can you help me as bowling coach get in that position as well? It's, I can't stress the importance enough of if a coach has got a bit of a hunch and an intuition, just hold him back just a little bit more to understand just a little bit more about it.
100%. I think that's so important. Like when it comes down to like, getting in certain positions, obviously, if you just, I think in cricket, a lot of people know what to do, but then they don't know how to do it. So it's like, how can we then work together to then create those changes? And I know from like a science and motor learning point of view, like constraints-based coaching and like almost not telling the athlete what to do, but setting them up in an environment with a certain drill so they have to do it anyway. Do you have like certain drills to help with like release points and that you love going to, or alignment or getting people taller or things like that?
I work on cues. So I was working with somebody earlier on today. His natural, he's very high. We've worked on his posture, keeping upright to keep in kind of a healthier action. And his stock ball is in, but we talked around the whole subject is if we can just give you the skills to shape a ball away, whether it's in the air, off the pitch. Now, in order to do that, we might just need to see if we can drop that release point a little bit. So I work on cues, and I was talking about, making some tweaks with his grip, but I want you to feel like Malinga. Here, I want you to get rid of that front arm across you as opposed to up and down, get it going across you and seeing if you can drop that release point there. So I tend to go more on cues more than anything else. And a release point, dropping a release point doesn't just happen. It normally happens because of what happens just prior to that.
100%. Spot on. I love that. And I reckon like one thing I've been saying recently to people is like things don't just happen for a reason. Like you don't just fall away in your action for no reason. Like it's always a counterbalance or a reaction to something that's happened previously back down the chain, often like in your run up and often from not being aligned or your feet stepping over and crossing over or you're being off balance with your technique and things like that. So I think a lot of people will come to me, and they're like, we talk about their bowling action. What are some things? Always ask, what coaches have you worked with before? What are some technical changes that you've made? And they have a list of, I want to, I fall away, my front arm's gone, back foot contact bad, and like it's just a list of things that are wrong. It's like I want to fix this, and this. And I'm like, absolutely great. But I think like overall, globally, let's just work on trying to make you a better cricketer, a better bowler, and whatever. Often if you clean up one thing, a lot of things clean up themselves. Have you found that as well? That there's obviously usually one sort of technical thing that people clean up, and then everything else becomes a lot more move towards an optimal technical model or a better technical model.
Yeah, so that's the cause and effect model, isn't it? So, what we are seeing, the effect is a consequence of what's happened before. So, a question that I always ask subconsciously myself now is, what's the one simple thing that will have the biggest impact here, biggest positive impact? And it might just be something like, to get up a better posture through the crease. It might just be something as simple as the cue of jumping forwards as opposed to jumping up. Because if you're jumping up, you've got more vertical forces, it's more difficult for the legs to actually keep you up. So I'm aware of technique and the detail of technique, but I'm thinking, right, the player doesn't need to know all of that detail. So what's the one simple cue? And I do things like belly button at the target, drive your back knee when you're jumping, drive your knee toward, knee the batter in the box as opposed to the helmet. So keep them going flat as opposed to going up, silly things like that. But I totally agree, mate. I think that what we see is always a consequence of what's happened 2 or 3 frames before. And then it's right in the most simple language as I can create. What's the one thing that have the biggest possible effect? And lots of it just takes care of itself after that, really.
Yeah, 100%. That's spot on. I think that first sample you said there, like posture, like not falling away or spending too much time on your back foot. People might say, "Oh, I've got a falling away issue. I've got a back foot contact issue." Mate, it's like, no, you've probably got like a jump issue. You're jumping high, not jumping forward, and it's like, yeah, it's like the same thing with injuries now a lot of time as well. It's like some people, like if you have like a back issue, it can often present sometimes as like a hamstring tightness or hamstring awareness, and it's like you spend so much time work on fixing the hamstring, but it's a band-aid fix because you actually got a back problem with the hamstring symptom. So that's why I reckon that's the difference between like elite coaches like yourself and others, where sometimes I've guys, if you work with guys that often probably might know too much or a bit have been fed a lot of over analysis. It's almost harder. It's harder to coach people who know a little bit too much because they see
a red flag.
Every error. Yeah,
there's always a bit of a red flag. The conversation goes into so much detail, whereas it gets to a point, Jace, where okay, I'll have that conversation with you because I enjoy those conversations as well. But I'm thinking at some point I need to change the conversation in a different direction because we need to go more performance than process.
100%. And it's often those people that will like come to sort of you as coaching, I'd imagine privately at least, because they're the people who probably care the most. They're really analytical about their game. They obviously love it, but would you say that it's almost like it's counterintuitive to sometimes really overanalyze your own action and get a little bit too emotional or a bit too like invested in it and know every intricate frame and what's going wrong? It's like error detecting too much.
Well, you can miss the obvious thing. That's the thing. You get so detailed with what your knee lift in your run up and your length of your delivery stride, where your front arm is. You get so caught up in that kind of that detail. I worked alongside somebody who used to talk a lot about I'm getting dragged into the weeds of stuff, and I think too much detail, complexity is the enemy of really doing really simple things really well, and it means that you're directing your focus and your energy into areas that actually you might miss the simple thing that sort most of it out.
100%. No, I couldn't agree more. It's I would imagine like most like some of the the guys you work with at the professional level, you have a combination of some guys that are just running and bowl it, keep it really, really simple. Then you have some guys that are really over analytical as well. How do you go coaching both of those guys? Just wanted to take a second to pause from this chat to let you know that Barnsey and me both have our online coaching slots open for the upcoming 2025 year. So if you're interested in becoming a better cricketer or you want to become faster, stronger, more powerful, better mental skills, understand nutrition better, whatever it is, if you just want to get better in any way possible, both of us have coaching slots available and we'd love to help you out. So click the links down below if you're interested in that. Let's get back to the conversation.
I think it's really important to understand the player. And so the person in front of me has been made by all of their experiences with players and what detail they've been exposed to before. So for somebody who really loves technique, it's important for me in my relationship with them that I give them a bit of technique, use video, show them, give them a little bit of their language, but then at the right point say, right, your role is this is what you're good at. This session is about bowling 4 away swingers in 1 over, and then 2 wobble seams back into his pads. So I give them what they a little bit of what they want, and then I kind of give them a little bit of what I want as well, because it's all about performance. So I think that's the right way to do it. And then other players, they just want the outcome. Just tell me what this session is about. Tell me the scenario. You've got 20 balls to take 2 wickets. You work out how to do it, and that they are purely in outcome, and that's okay as well. But I do think it's important to know the person in front of you, what they need and what they think they need as well. So it's a little bit of give and take.
Yeah, 100%. Right now, because you've been in your pre-season phase, how do you guys structure like technical work and like performance or like match like training in the nets? Like, do you guys have one like you actually say, this is more of a technique focused session, or this is a scenarios game-based session or a competitive session. How do you structure that usually?
So our first championship game is the first week in April. So we're like for 6 weeks, about 50 days away from playing our first competitive game. So the way that it's structured at the moment is there's two group kind of competitive sessions per week where it's nets, it's scenarios, it's mats. And I always quite like indoors. Often the mats that we use is very batter friendly. So I started last year putting string, quite thick string, on the floor on a length, and then putting tape across it. So that's the target. That's the length that we're trying to hit on average. And you've got three or four strips of string held down by tape on a length. So that's a bit of a target. And if the ball hits the string, it nips.
Yeah.
So we brought the bowlers into it a little bit. Even if the ball misses the string and the tape, it's visually quite off-putting for the batters. So they're still in the game anyway. But we have 2 group sessions per week. Next week when we get back is white ball week. So we'll get into that, and they'll all have a bit of fun, like hitting bombs, hitting 4s and 6s off the bowling machine, and then we'll set up scenarios. And then so the bowlers will bowl three times next week, 2 in those group sessions, and they'll have a 1-to-1 or 2-on-1 technical session with me as well. So the reason for that is we've still got time to tweak, repair if we need to, improve seam positions. Whatever that bowler is working on, we've got that opportunity once a week for 45 minutes. They'll get through 6 or 7 kind of overs in that, and then they'll get through their competitive sessions as well. So that's how we kind of structure it, and then they'll do the S&C bits outside of that as well.
Yeah, nice. That's cool. I like that. I think it's good to know that, like, I think breaking up is good for that phase of the year as well. Like having a session to work on technique. And because have you ever tried to mix in like compete and technique, and sometimes it gets a bit cloudy? Has that ever happened before?
Yeah, but I don't mind that. It's interesting because I've started rereading some old notebooks, and I can't even remember where I was working when I wrote this down, but there was a discussion that the coaching staff had around training sessions and the importance of making it difficult. And the note that I wrote down was, and there was a question mark at the end of it, if players don't fail, it's not the right session.
100%.
So that is about us as coaches being really creative and thinking, right, what's going on here? Does it look too easy? And if it is too easy, we change the scenario to make it more difficult, because that's the game. So yeah, it's a real mix. And to answer your question, I quite like it. It might make it cloudy, but I quite like saying, right, this first spell you got 6 overs, so they just get into it, and then I might go up to them in their 4th over and say, right, I want you to take your focus away from the outcome here, and I want you to take your focus to that drive through the crease, getting off that back foot quicker, to see if they're still bowling the ball at a batter, but just to kind of shake up their kind of focus and intent, because that's what the game does. And so some players can do that, others can't. I think there's some circumstances in a game where they do have to do that, where it feels a bit crap and they're missing their line, or whatever, they have to, for a few balls anyway, go back to their simple cues that work for them when they're at their technical best. So they have to do that in a game every now and then anyway. So we make sure they do it at practice.
100%. I actually do the same with my guys. When we talk about mental skills and mindset and focus in that, I like get my bowlers to like describe to me like what you're doing at your best. Like what's the one thing that if you're doing this, then everything else just aligns. Because I was having a chat, like for example, with a key batter yesterday, and he's 16 years old, young kid, and he's like struggling a little bit. this year. I've got a guy who's been playing up high level and that, and then he made some runs last week. I'm like, well, what were some of the things that you done different this week? He goes, oh, I was just so balanced.
Yeah.
I'm like, bang, that's that QA view. Like, if you're balanced, everything else falls into play. And obviously for bowlers, there's a lot of different things. But I reckon understanding yourself and your game and knowing what's that one or two like buzzwords or things that you can do to bring yourself back to your best. And it's like, I think that's really good from a mindset point of view. Because I think you'd experienced before. I know I have, when you start spraying them a little bit or the batter gets on top and your mind goes everywhere, doesn't it? You're rattled. I know I used to be like a deer in the headlights, rattled. I didn't have anything to bring myself back to back to me, back to what I did, and focus on what I could control and keeping it really consistent each ball. If I had a buzzword, like this is what I need to do to bring my best, technical or some sort of verb or whatever it is, it's gold just to keep it simple, isn't it? And just to make sure that you can really just have understanding of your own game. Because if you as a bowler, it's all you. Like you have complete control until you let go of the ball. So you may as well have a buzzword or understand your game really, really well.
I reckon it's really important, Jace, that and that's a great conversation that you're having with your bowlers, because I actually think it's our duty as coaches to obviously work with bowlers, cricketers in the training scenario, but then send them across the line, over the rope, with the simplest message that we possibly can. So we've given them all the detail, but we round it off into that one cue. And for some it might just be running quicker, running slower, pick your knees up. Something that just seems to bring everything together, because bowlers need to cross the line with belief and confidence, and they can't remember all the detail that we talk about at training, but they might remember, even if they've got a note in their pocket as a reminder, which again will give them confidence because they know they've got it in their pocket if they need a reminder of, this is the one thing I do when I'm at my technical best.
100%.
I think it's
absolutely.
Yeah.
Spot on. And I do the same as well when I'm doing like my running and sprinting as well. Like running mechanics and that can be really like complex and overcomplicated because there's so much stuff going on. And the same thing goes, like, obviously it links to your runner. But one thing that I'm really big on is when somebody does something that for me like looks really good technically and they finally get it, I'm like, yes, that's what I wanted to see. And then I go, what did that feel like? And then I'm like, what did you change? And what did it feel like? What were you thinking? And they're like, and they say the word, what they were thinking or what they were feeling. I'm like, that's the word and that's the feeling that you need to try and replicate over and over and over again. Like, that's it. So it's like when you do something well, whether it's bowling, running, in the gym, whatever it is, when you nail that technique or you nail that feeling, it's like, all right, remember that feeling, and then remember what you're telling yourself how to do it, and then let's just like rinse and repeat that for as long as we possibly can, and just like really keep that going, because like success leaves clues. Like if you've done it once, you can do it again. There's no such thing as a fluke from technique point of view. I believe.
So what? Take that scenario then. How do you stress test it? So how do you come up with some ideas on really putting that what could be the one thing that brings it all together for that player, but you want to test it under some real pressure? So what are the kind of things that you would consider, rinse and repeat? You add a bit of pressure in there. It's not quite as easy to stay in that place, is it?
No, it's not. And I think like the best way to describe that is the principle from general to specific. So on a Saturday morning with my group I train, we do sprinting and running mechanics all the way through the off season, and that's done on NAS track. So we do that pure running session, do our technique drills, do some sprints, and we go through that. And then like at the start, people come in, never would have done any running technique stuff before, and typically the same bad habits or the same suboptimal technique is always there. So we're always trying to get people better knee drive, better bounce, a bit more relaxed, all those sorts of things. They're trying to move towards a more optimal technical model.
Yeah.
And it can take a little bit of time, but then once I get the hang of it, let's say, June, July, I start to get the hang of it, and then everyone's running really nice and smoothly and the way I like. And then the best way to stress test that is now that we've got him running well without a ball in their hand for a fast bowler, I go, sweet. I'll give them a ball, I'll get them to mark out their run-ups, and then we try to apply that feeling that they're getting in that technique into their run-ups.
Yeah.
And then trying to, because that's the whole point of it. Like, yes, obviously in the field and that, but if they're fast bowls, they're trying to improve their run-ups in particular. So we stress test that by then making it more complex and more specific to cricket. Get a ball in their hand, see if they can replicate that with a ball in their hand. And oftentimes there's a phase where it feels bad. They lose a plot a little bit. They go back to their old technique. That's what's comfortable. And then it's an opportunity to work through that. But it's a much quicker learning curve because they can do it without the ball. Now it's just about getting the brain to link it all back in together. Yeah. And then that's one, doing it fresh is one thing. And then it's obviously under fatigue as well is the other thing as well. So if you can't do something fresh, then you can't do something under fatigue. So it's got to be, you got to learn a technique first without the ball, learn the good running technique then with the ball. And then once you've got it with the ball, then you got to keep on bowling more balls or doing more run-ups under fatigue to then, another one, it's reps. So you just, ingraining that into your technique. And then also under fatigue, pressure's on. Can you still hold that? Under fatigue, that's going to help you be more efficient, running faster, more momentum through the crease, etc. there. So that's kind of the model that I'll go throughout a pre-season.
Yeah. The fatigue thing is the obvious one. I mean, years ago, I always used to use S&C as a bit of a punishment type thing. Yeah, because it hurts, doesn't it? S&C. So do you do a lot of coaching as well? Or are you purely S&C?
S&C, but I sort of like link it into the cricket as much as I can. I reckon, like, my knowledge with that stuff is like, if there's some glaring, issues technically, then there's stuff that I can clean up pretty good.
Yeah.
But then I'll outsource if it's like someone already bowling like 120 and they're already bowling like pretty good, then that's probably where my knowledge is limited. But if someone's bowling 105 and 110 and there's some really key things, then we can clean that up and use that, I reckon. But then like for like a professional guy, someone on 125, 130, then wouldn't really have a clue on how to get him quicker if there's nothing really major going on.
You're like a hybrid coach, aren't you? So one of the, I reckon, this is just my view, there's lots of evidence to suggest that the wobble seam ball is bloody difficult. Fast as the first bit, sideways movement happens further down the wicket, so they got less time to adjust. All right. So I reckon the art of pure swing isn't necessarily something that bowlers are en masse quite as good at these days as they have been. So I've been doing a lot of work and kind of preaching to our age group coaches about the importance of seam presentation, grips, working out cues of ripping down and through the back of the ball to present an upright seam, and then kind of go through. So swing bowling, they're normally going one side or the other, not cutting, but they're just one side or the other to prevent this kind of just a pure upright seam. So I've been preaching about control of seam. Now, in order to do that, I'm interested in your view on how you can help kind of help coaches, help players have the tools in their bag for that to happen. So I've made a note earlier on. So how would you target, I've just put finger, wrist and forearm conditioning to make sure that they move together in such a way that would help me as a skills coach? Have you got any thoughts on that?
Interesting one, that. I reckon grip strength in that, a lot of it probably comes down to like just lifting heavy weights in the gym. Like,
right,
be doing like some RDLs or deadlifting, you've got to really hold the bar, and that's a nice way to, and chin ups and things like that, a nice way to build some proper grip strength. In terms of like work on like actual like flexion and flicking and things like that, haven't really done any of that personally myself. with that stuff. Potentially, it could be viable. Something I've never actually really thought of, to be honest. Like when it comes to wrist and that, are you someone who thinks that the wrist position is a result of like the things that lean before to get in the right position, or do you reckon like the wrist itself can be isolated in the bowling action to be used to it can be isolated at the end and controlled? Because I think there's two different schools of thoughts on that.
Yeah, I reckon so. It's the last point of contact, isn't it? And so, every bowler is different. You look at Bumrah's wrist, Shaheen Shah. I did a post yesterday or this morning on Nazim Shah. So every bowler is different. But I think you can isolate the wrist. You can do that. You can get someone, I'm a massive fan. I heard this from Chris Wokes's coach when Wokesy was coming up through the age groups. He used to have all of his seam bowlers walk around the boundary talking about the game, but using a yo-yo.
Yeah, okay.
Because that's the same. That's a yo-yo, and that's bowling. So it's exactly the same. So I do think that it can be taught from a young age. Like, kids are brilliant at copying. I think you catch them at a young age. It's still going to be, so the skill of swing and seam presentation is going to be something that they look to improve throughout their whole career. Look at Jimmy, absolute master, for the last 8-10 years. But he had to work really hard on it. When he realized that his ball speeds were dropping, he needed to increase his kind of swing skill level, which he did brilliantly. So I do think it's the process of learning any skill. What is that? So you can isolate that, of course you can. But then when you start adding in the elbow, when you start adding in other levers, the coordination of it is quite an interesting one. And I guess the considerations there is any shoulder impingements, even with young kids, can they get into these positions? And if they can't, but we think it's important, how can we help them, sort of thing?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think the yo-yo one is awesome. I think from a young age, it's amazing what sort of things that you ingrain, and then things that you've done as a kid, like the skills that you pick up from that might not be directly from cricket itself, gets translated to cricket. That's why it's a whole other discussion on young kids not specializing in one thing too early and playing a variety of different sports, because you take skills from everything to then help you that go, let's say cricket is you want to play cricket, you're playing soccer, you're playing basketball, you're playing AFL football, you're playing rugby, whatever it is, as well. You get those transferable skills. Yo-yo, all of a sudden you develop an unbelievable wrist because you've been doing yo-yo as a kid. It's amazing that just expose yourself to a variety of different things. It's actually something like as you get older, we stop playing and doing stuff like that. And I reckon it's a underrated thing for somebody who's older, 16 to 25, 30, 40, whatever it is, to still do things that are and play a different sport, or still be playful in some way and doing other things, because you pick up so much more stuff doing that.
Yeah, I agree. I really dislike young players pulling out of other sports, and so it's solely cricket. I haven't even got an age where I would like them to continue playing multi-sports. I think it's like an individual thing. But if you've got an absolute, diamond of a player, and it's obvious that they're going to be the next off the block, you might consider, 16, 17 sort of thing. But there are so many benefits and transfer movement skills. I mean, we've talked about this before about, I'm not after an easy life as a coach, but give me a bowler that knows how to run well, move well, I can actually start putting the first floor on the house, as opposed to give me another bowler that, you mentioned something earlier, it just looks difficult to run. If you close your eyes, you can hear them running with their feet hitting the floor and stuff. You really have to go right back to basics before you can start putting that first floor on the house, sort of thing. So yeah, multi-sports. I think there is so much going for it. Racket sports. I mean, hockey, endurance, hand-eye. Bloody, there's so much going for it. This is where you guys, like in Australia, you've got an advantage, I reckon.
Yeah, our culture is very much like AFL football winter, cricket in the summer, and it's kind of like our culture is like, if you're not going to play cricket, no, if you're not going to play AFL professionally, and then secondly you'll play cricket. So that like a lot of the boys, like for example, the whole cricket Victoria, the whole fast bowling, all the cricketers pretty much that are like those young fast bowlers coming through now. There's a lot of boys in that 22 to 26-year-old age bracket.
Yeah,
all of them are like really good.
Yeah,
footballers. I hope no one hear me say that and give them some credit, but all of them are like really good. Like they were good junior football players, and they played, until they got contracted pretty much, or just before.
Yeah,
and there's a reason why they're just so athletic. Like Will Sutherland could have played both. He's one of the rare ones that chose cricket over footy. And a lot of those guys, and then there's actually been a couple of guys from Cricket Victoria that have like lost their career contracts like last year, and then two of them have gone and signed AFL contracts and have played AFL this year. So the beauty of it is being like good at multiple different sports. Is like I think it's because what it gives you movement options and movement strategies. It's like in the field, ball is hit out here sideways. The cricket way, it's one way, but a ball goes out to it and someone's tackling you about tackle you, and you need to get there before getting your head smashed off. You're going to find a different strategy to probably get there faster because it means more to you. And then you apply that same movement strategy into the cricket field. And I think that's why I think Stephen Jones actually put up a post the other day I was saying, I couldn't agree with it anymore. It was build the athlete first and then the cricketer second. And I see a lot of people in the gym, S&C wise, will say something like, even on my last post I put up about bench pressing, and someone go, we don't do the pressing motion in cricket, so why are we training it? I'm like, the reason why we do S&C in gym is to do things that aren't cricket, because we do so much cricket in the first place. Like the last thing that we need to do is just do the same movements exactly in the gym, because the bucket's already filled of cricket stuff. It's like S&C is what other buckets can we fill to then help make the bucket bigger for the cricket stuff. Is the whole point of that.
No, I agree. I enjoyed that bench press one, mate.
It was a very random. I was just sitting at home. I was just leaving the gym, and one of the boys like, trying to bench press.
And
I'm like, yeah, sure, mate. Why not?
Well, I mean, bowling's push, pull, lunge, squat, isn't it? So, I had a question a few years ago. Somebody said, well, why are we squatting? Why are we deep squatting as bowlers? And it was a good question. Why are we back squatting? Like with your neck and extension as opposed to front squat? And they're really good questions. And I think that it's really important that you do question, because, if nothing else, somebody like myself, checking and challenging what I do. Yeah, it's a great question, but this is why we're doing it. It doesn't mean to say that it's right for everybody, if you see what I mean.
100% spot on. And I was probably like in the same vein, like when I was young, when I was like 18, 19, first learning S&C and that. It's like, never, ever, ever bench press for cricketers. No way. And then same thing, I was the same. I'm doing recently. I'm like, no back squatting at all, not for any cricketer at all. No chance. And then as you get older, everything becomes a bit more grey. It's like, it depends. Like, for most people, maybe I wouldn't back squat them or bench press them, but maybe for the 25-year-old bloke who's loves his cricket, his shoulders are fine, but I tell you, loves just as much as cricket, having a big chest and looking good at the beach. I'm like, we absolutely going to bench press. You know what I mean? Or someone squats beautifully. 100% back squat, but I'm probably more a front squat man when it comes to cricketers. But it all depends, doesn't it?
I've had to stop my squatting days. I'm into single leg. I can't remember what they're called now. They're horrible. Single leg, back leg up on the bench. Yeah, it's just
Bulgarian split squats.
Oh yeah, horrible. 20 kilogram dumbbells. just leg day just feels sick day basically. But
You can dread it, can't you? Going in.
yeah. You're asking a question. I'm gonna have to go in a minute, but you're asking a question at the start, just about talented players. It'll be a great discussion. Who makes it? Who doesn't? What are the differences? What are the kind of observations and stuff? Do you want to talk about that quickly?
100%. Well, I sort of got inspired by that. I'm reading a book at the moment called Hidden Potential by Adam Grant, I believe.
Yeah.
Really, really good book, actually. I've only read about 30, 40 pages so far. And it's actually something you said before as well about making training hard. If they're not failing, then it's not working. And literally read this last night. It was something about it's the old cliche, getting comfortable, getting uncomfortable. And it's like, and somebody's ability to learn and pick up something isn't based on like skill and talent. It's about their ability to withstand discomfort, and it's a motivational thing because they were looking at learning a different language, right? And there's people who like they're 50 and they've learned like 7 languages, but up until 40 they hadn't learned only one language, and they've been trying to learn languages throughout their whole life. And it wasn't because they all of a sudden got smarter, more intellectual. It was because they actually just dealt with that uncomfortable feeling of failing more. So that's actually why that really piqued my interest. What are some of the things and habits that you've seen, or from a training preparation point of view, or whatever it is that you've seen from guys?
That book you just described there reminds me of a book I read a few years ago called Grit, Angela Duckworth. It's that, people that enjoy challenge, but they have persistence to kind of stick with it, sort of thing. Even if they are failing, they find a way. I've seen some so talented cricketers that haven't made it, and I've also seen cricketers that are talented but less so, that just have that fire in their eyes that will just they're willing to squeeze every bit of talent out of them. I think it's a number of reasons. I reckon it's a little bit about upbringing. It's a little bit about how are they with failing. When they were young, what happened? Did they fail in a safe environment? How do they feel around failure? Because sport is all about failing. It's problem solving, and it's becoming better with each failure you overcome. That's it. And I think that some players who have relied on their talent, they haven't failed very much, but when they start failing, they haven't got a clue what direction to go in. So I really do think it's highly talented players. I'm always a little bit concerned if I know that they haven't been in environments that are bloody tough. Working with coaches like we've talked about earlier. If a training session, if players haven't failed, it's not the right training session. I mean, blimey. What parent would actually put their child into an environment like that with coaches? Well, it's coaches that high support and high challenge, and set up an environment safe to fail, and it's okay to ask questions, and you review it and you kind of look after them. So I reckon, what have I seen? The players that haven't made it have not been curious enough. They generally don't ask a lot of questions. Over a period of time, I haven't seen kind of progression, particularly around fitness, because fitness is not easy, because there is pain attached to it. But we know that to execute skills to a high level, you have to be fit. You have to be, especially in the English environment, the English cricket season. So I reckon it's as much about the environment, their upbringing, how often they've had these experiences where they've had to just find a way. Against all the odds, they still get up, and it's just about getting up one more time than you're on the floor, really. And the other people. So Ollie Pope is an example that I use a lot of. He wasn't even in the Surrey Academy initially. He was in the pathway, but there was just something about him that you knew something special was going to happen. And he used to, practice keeping wicket, and he was a bit messy, bit horrible when he batted, but he hit the middle of the bat more often than not. But I was more curious about him. He's just different, but as a character, there was that steeliness. So, players that make it versus players that don't, they just have something. They enjoy competition. They enjoy real high challenge, and they've also experienced that, like, in their development, is what I reckon. That's not all of it, but that's most of it, I reckon.
100%. I love that, because like I think through that is that's where you actually get better. It's like when you are challenged, it's like, is it toys out of the cot, or is it, all right, how can we learn? This is a great opportunity to get better, and then not just like, it could be anything. It could be challenging on the field, like you've been hit for 2 balls first ball over and over. Instead of throwing toys out of the cot, it's back to your center, back to yourself. All right, what can I do differently? How can I improve from this? It could be in the gym, maybe not improving the way you want to. All right, how can I improve my sleep, my nutrition going into it? How can I have a better mindset going into it? It's like, it's always the people who are always just wanting to learn, and actually applying it. Like, you can get a lot of people sometimes are going to ask a lot of questions, and they're like they're always just learning, but they never actually go and try things and do things. Always looking for that one fix. They're asking advice from a million different people, but they've got the advice, but they actually never stick at something for long enough. Like, I had a guy recently, we were chatting, and he would try this one mindset thing, going back to those buzzwords and those keywords and that. And we did it. He bowled really, really well. One went best ever bowled. Next week, didn't bowl the way he wanted to. And then he's got all downhill from there. Oh, nothing's working. And he's like, oh, I'm worried about going to the finals. I'm like, oh, last week you bowled the best for your season, mate. See, he's like doing that. This week didn't work out. Cool. It's sport. Sometimes you can't play well every week. What can we learn? How can we go from there? Like, all right, I needed that advice just to relax. It's going to be okay. And then instead of spiraling out of control, it's like, how can we then just methodically get better and improve and embrace the challenge?
It's that persistence, mate. And that is either ingrained or not long before they come to us.
100%.
But you can train it. You can learn it. You really can. If you're wired like that, you can do it. But yeah.
Lovely, mate. Mate, great chat. I'll leave you to it. I'll leave you get off to bed and enjoy the evening.
Get to bed. I need a conversation with you about. I'm really interested in the podcast stuff. Whether there's an opportunity for us to do that. I've had a quick look. There is no other skills coach and S&C that does anything like that. And between the two of us, we could get guests on easily.
100%.
So that's an opportunity. The other thing I was gonna say, these videos, I need a conversation with you about how the fuck I can use it, really effectively. I know that you posted and collaborated. That's fine. I'm on I've got this blog that's growing, and I'm looking to grow it even further. So maybe if I have access to this video as well, you might have already done that, but then I can share it with my paid subscribers, as you obviously could with your end as well. But there's definitely conversation. I'll send you through just some questions. You're a bit further down the line than me in terms of quality of what you put out. Maybe I need to outsource a little bit as well, really. But there's definitely some stuff I need to be clear on. We're going to do this regularly, which I hope we do, because I think it just gives an angle to people that they wouldn't normally hear. But how we can use it effectively for our own kind of journeys, I think I just need to become clear on a couple of things, really.
Yeah, 100%. I love it. It gives me energy doing stuff like this. I love just chatting, and it's so good for me just learning, and then also for people listening as well. They must be learning so much too. So I've had really good feedback from the first one, and definitely what I'll do with this, I'll so when I go off this, it saves into a Google Drive
Yeah,
folder. So
yeah,
I'll just send you the link to that, and I'll
yeah,
add your email to it, and
yeah,
then you'll have access to both of them.
yeah,
And then I'll do the same thing where I've got them clipped up in the shorts,
yeah,
into the short ones. I'll send you the videos for that as well.
yeah.
And then
That'd be good. I need to
then
start using YouTube more, but I also need to, mate. If we clip this up, this has been about an hour. You clip it up, we'll get like in 10 bits of bloody, 20, 30 seconds videos out of this. It was bloody brilliant.
heaps. Brilliant.
Yeah,
Absolutely brilliant.
yeah. Okay, mate. Well, listen, great to catch up as always. I caught up with Ben today. How's he going? Are you in contact with him still or not?
Haven't chatted to him for a couple of weeks,
Yeah,
but he's from last time I checked, he said he's going good.
he's good as gold, mate. Ariane's been out in Dubai this past week.
That's
Still,
why. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. I
still.
was
I've
trying to
not.
message him.
Yeah, I've not caught up with him either, but he's been busy working with Dougie Brown out in Dubai because it's half term over here. But he's another good one, mate. He is highly talented, Ariane, and he's highly thought of by Surrey as well as an all-rounder. So
Yeah.
they're two lovely families, mate. So, and I'm catching up again with this guy in New Zealand tomorrow. So I'm going to be looking to push him your way as well. So we'll see how it goes.
Beautiful, mate. Awesome stuff. Love
Okay,
it.
mate. Good to catch up.
Legend. Appreciate it, Barney.
See you, mate. Cheers. Bye.
Yeah. See you, mate.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening, guys. To not miss out on the next conversation, please press subscribe and leave a review or rating if you listen to this on podcasts. Or if you're on YouTube right now, make sure you subscribe as well, because both of us are going to be putting up some content, longer form exclusive content to help you guys, the cricketers, get better every single week. I know I'm committed to posting a YouTube video with more nuance, more in-depth stuff every single week. I know Barnes is looking to start the same thing. So please jump on board with that, like, subscribe. And if you are interested in coaching from either one of us, fast bowling, S&C, whatever it is, please have a look at the links down below or reach out via our Instagram handles. And we look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.